Namastu. My name is Anku Sa Ra, and I am very excited to be here with everybody from all around the world here on International Culture Day 2021. We are really excited with everything that we've seen so far, and I know that we're definitely excited to see even more. So today we want to continue to highlight the many accomplishments that we as Nubian Melaninites, so-called Blacks, so-called Caribbean, so-called Latinos, Latinas, all of the great accomplishments that we have been able to share and will share on this beautiful day. There's a deeper meaning behind it all. And so International Culture Day is literally about a year away since we last had all of the riots and the rage. But now the pieces to the puzzle are coming together. And so today I want to present a little something that our Basesh, How to Hotel has been sharing with us. And it's entitled, Come Out with Great Substance. Come out with great substance. And so let us begin. We're going to be coming out of Genesis chapter 15. If you have your Bible, it'll be good to pull it out because we'd want you to take some notes. We'd want you to, take something away from what it is that we're talking about today so that you can share it with those who would want to know. For the sake of those who may not be familiar with Genesis chapter 15, we're going to go through it a little bit until we get to our main point. But Genesis 15 is about one of our great ancestors. They call him Abram at this point in the King James Version of the Bible. But we know him as Zoser Ibrium in the original books of the Bible. So this Zoser Ibrium and all those whom he ruled over, they've moved from Ur of Chaldees, this is the land that he actually grew up in, to the land of Cadmon, called the land of Canaan, in order to one day be admitted into the universe city and garden of Akid Aten, Gan Eden, for the purposes of initiation and re-education. This is important because this is very similar to what we are doing as his seed. Abram, or as we know him, Zoser Ibrium, he receives the word of the Natural Elohim. In the King James Version, they'll say the Lord. But he receives this word by way of the Adonai, the angelic Lord of unification teachings. His name was Imhotep, or I am Hotep. And he was the Malak Zodok, or the angelic messenger of Ma'at, which is justice. He was the keeper of the secrets of Dendera. So this I am Hotep has a message for Zoser Ibrium. Of course, when these scriptures are written, we read it so quickly that we think everything is happening kind of in one day. But when Abram, or Zoser Ibrium, when he was called out of his land of nativity, out of his Ur of Chaldees, it took a while before he got this message. And so he was feeling forgotten, kind of like how some of us feel in this day and time. We feel as if no one really cares about us, or we really don't have anybody looking out for us. But Zoser Ibrium felt the same way. And Zoser Ibrium is assured that he has not been forgotten. And he's given a sign and shield by this Adonai, I am Hotep. This is important because this is the same sign and shield that we, as Atonis Christians, we as those of the three groups of 12 royal tribes are receiving today. So this sign was not just a sign, but a visible sign. This was a unified triad symbol composed of the Ankh for ancient Ishmael, not to be confused with Ishmaeli. There's also the 8-pointed star for the ancient Israel, again, not to be mistaken with Israeli. And then there is the crescent. This part right here, the crescent. All right? That represented or is for the ancient Midiani. Not again to be mistaken with Mitanni, but Midiani, the African, the ancient Midiani. And these three symbols, the Ankh, the eight-pointed star, and the crescent, is a sacred triad symbol. All right? Now, what I am Hotep was saying to Zose Ibrahim is that there shall be a visible emblem. But he say visible. A visible emblem or badge. We have to see our true faith. And this visible emblem or badge is a badge of honor to be worn by all amongst you, that's you and I, so that all who see it amongst the inhabitants of Tar Earth shall know that what? You all are of the what? Angelic genetics. Powerful. Whereby worthy to receive of the Qubtic right of sacred societies. He's being told, you're not being forgotten, you're being prepared. Everybody say prepared. So this was that visible sign, but then there was also the protective shield. The protective shield is the Naturu Elohim. In this instance, this I am Hotep, we're looking at the visible likeness of this I am Hotep. He was the Malak Zodak, the angelic messenger of Ma'at, justice, keeper of the secrets of Dendera. He was speaking on behalf of the 24 elders, of which he was one. These guardian angelic hosts still protect us today, as long as we live up to our covenants. Amen? Continue. This is important because in this day and time, just like how Zose Ibrahim had one from the 24 elders coming to say to him that he was not forgotten and those who he ruled over was not forgotten. We in this day and time have Gabriel, our Basesh, our Hotep Tar, who is an extension of that protective shield, the Naturu Elohim, whereby he is saying to us that some of us are the seed of this Naturu Elohim. And we need not only seek protection, but we now must also learn to protect. Amen. And so this reality continues to repeat itself, or this prophecy continues to repeat itself. And so we need not ignore or miss what's right in front of us. As we continue in Genesis 15, this Abram, or as we know him, Zosir Ibrahim, he's assured that he will bear children from his own seed, because at this time he doesn't have his own children. And this seed, or this Zerah, is necessary in order that they inherit this sign and this shield. And so this was a very important question for him, because he had been living amongst other than self and kind for so long that, like many of us today, he wasn't reproducing the way we're supposed to. The way that we're supposed to with regard to being what? Fruitful and multiplying. But he was assured, no, you will have children. These children will ultimately come from this constellation of Asaru, which we'll talk about at another time, or maybe someone today at Culture Day may address it. But these 14 stars, these 14 tribes that give birth to the three groups of 12 royal tribes. And so as we move down in Genesis 15, we're at verse 13, and it says, and he said unto Abram, or Zose Ibrahim, know of a surety that thy seed, we are this seed, it says that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. I think many of us would agree that we are those strangers. What is this word stranger here in the Strong's Concordance. The word Gare, and it means sojourner, a temporary inhabitant, a newcomer, lacking inherited rights. My Lord, you can't even inherit anything because they're telling you you're not from here. You see our brothers and sisters in America still fighting for voting rights. We see here in the Bahamas, we're fighting over crown land, fighting over different aspects of the country, like natural resources that for some reason we can't get our hands on. It's because we must be the temporary inhabitants. It goes on to talk about the foreigners in Israel. We know that there's a Israel that they have created, and then there's Israel. But we have become the strangers in these lands. And it's important that we understand what these lands represent. This word land is the word eretz. Say eretz. This is where this word earth ultimately comes from, but it goes a little deeper than just saying earth. It's saying a country, a territory, a district, a region, a tribal territory. We've got to get back to our tribes. A piece of ground. Then it says something here very important. Land of Canaan. So we are strangers where? In the land of Canaan. It goes on to talk about the inhabitants of the land. It goes on to talk about Sheol, which some would refer to as hell, which is what these lands have become for us, a hell, insofar as we now live under Hellenism or Greek rule, Greco-Roman rule. But this Sheol, this land without return. Wow. What is this talking about? Well, we know that when we were kidnapped out of, many of us, West Africa, we went through a door that we see here called the door of no return. Pausing for a second just so you can think about that. The door of no return. Slaves who passed through this door would never return. Of course, we return today as their ancestors. This is in Cape Coast, Ghana. Where were we going? We were going to these Canaanite lands. These Canaanite lands is talked about in Leviticus chapter 14, verse 34. It says, when ye be come into the land of Canaan, which I give to you for a possession, and I put the plague of leprosy in a house of the land of your possession. This land of Canaan is possessed. It is plagued. It was then, it still is today. If we go into the original books of the Bible in the Ba-Re-Shiyth, it's the African book of Genesis, the 9th scroll, the 62nd verse. It reads, and so it was the 24 elders amongst the Natural Elohim did prophesy and inform all present, including Nuach, that Lebanon, that Canaan, was regrettably cursed to not only be a genetically melanin recessive albino, but was also confirmed through his very thoughts and actions to be born having a spiritually cursed nature. This is who we live in amongst, wherein his sexual desires would be likened unto the perversely adverse nature of those amongst the adverse forces of Apep Zuen, such as Nakash, who were bipolar transvestites called Hijras. These Hijras of India, the world's first intersex or homosexual or transvestites and transgenders, fathers of Greek and Roman sexuality and mentality. This is where it's coming from, and that's why it's being pushed on us the way it is in these lands where we remain strangers. What is this leprosy? Sara'at. This word, Sara'at, this leprosy was not just a plague of the skin. It talks about this being, yes, a malignant skin disease, but it's also in the clothing or a mildew or a mold. It's in the buildings. You know, here in the Bahamas, we have many buildings that are plagued with leprosy or mold. At the end of the day, we're not aware of it. Not aware that we are strangers in these lands. Not aware that we are living in a plagued land. This is why all that we're seeing today, we still, whatever. And I'm talking about all of the great things we're seeing, all of the talent that we're witnessing right now. Why are we still at the bottom of the totem pole? Well, some will question, what is this leprosy? I mean, where are you getting this from? The National Library of Medicine. Sounds white enough. It says a high prevalence of vitiligo in lepromatious leprosy. In other words, vitiligo, or this disease, many people relate it to Michael Jackson, where he's losing melanin in certain parts of the body. Well, this is linked to a form of leprosy, even though they'll try to pretend like it doesn't. This study that we're looking at, it says that leprosy and vitiligo are common affections in the West Indies. Interesting. Vitiligo frequently occurs in lepromatious patients. An observation rarely reported in the literature. Well, why? Why are you not reporting this? What don't you want us to know? So they did a study between 1978, 1999, and long story short is the data confirmed that the association of vitiligo and leprosy was not fortuitous or not by chance. There is a definite link. The physiopathology leading to this high rate of vitiligo in lepromatious leprosy is unclear, they say, despite the fact that autoimmunity plays a major role in both diseases. So not to get too deep scientifically, but we want to make sure that people understand that we're not just slapping words together. Okay? But this leprosy is a form of leprosy characterized by pale, they say, macules in the skin or patches in the skin. All right, and then they go on to tell you exactly how that disease takes place. So it's important that we do our homework, we do our research to understand what this means. But there's another name that they have for leprosy. They call it Hansen's disease. They say it's also known as leprosy, an infection caused by slow-growing bacteria called Mycobacterium leprae. It can affect the nerves, the skin, the eyes, the lining of the nose, etc., etc. But why do we find that interesting? Because Hansen's disease sounds like Ham's son's disease. And if you go to Genesis 10 and 6, you see that one of Ham's son, the one that was cursed, is none other than Can-Naan. So we're making sure that we're clear about who these people are and what lands they're, because we don't want to leave here and you not realize that you're in these lands, or you're in the land that's being influenced by these lands. Just recently had a meeting of the leaders from the G7 Canaanite nations. Say Canaanite nations, just look at the picture. All right, these people, British Prime Minister, the American President, the Canadian Prime Minister, the French President, the German Chancellor, the Japanese Prime Minister, the Italian Prime Minister, along with the EU representatives. They talk about, this is 9 of them here in this picture. 2 of them represent aspects of the European Council or the European Commission. But in Revelation 13:1, it says, and I stood upon the side of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. So this is not just a Bible verse. This is talking about a group of people that are controlling the economies. And what was their latest theme at the G7 conference? They said to build back better. Now, we weren't in any of those pictures, so they can't be talking about us. And we know they're not talking about us because if we go through this study that was about 3 years old now, and this is in the Guardian newspaper, you can look it up, and there are other sites that talk about it, but it says the median wealth of Black Americans will fall to 0 by 2053. That's what this report is warning. It says the study predicts huge and growing gulf between white U.S. households, making it very clear, and everyone else. So when they're talking about building better, they're talking about building themselves better. And it says that this could be disastrous for the future of America's middle class. But they ain't talking about the middle class. They just said black people gonna have a what? A medium income of zero. That means you're gonna be a slave again in their lands. Let's go back to Genesis 15. So this stranger, us, in these Canaanite lands, these lands that are not ours, and we're serving them, and we're being afflicted for 400 years. But what is this affliction? The word ono, this afflicted as a word. It means to be occupied, be busied with. So Canaanite lands doesn't only mean that you have to leave the land. It could also mean, and does also mean, that you've been invaded, you've been occupied. You could be living in a land of your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents' nativity, but your land can be occupied, and you would have become oppressed. You would have been made humble. You would have been made lower, downcast, afflicted, astute. In other words, they're stepping on us to ultimately gain. We're being mishandled. We're being humiliated. With all this talent that we're seeing today, we're not progressing the way that we could. And this has been going on now for 400 plus years. We've been sold as cargo. We've been sold all over the world. And wherever we land, we do blossom, but it's time for us to be in our garden. So for 400 years, we've always been the entertainment. Some of you would look at this and say, this is not entertainment. This is two black men being hung. But look how these white men, I don't see any women among them in this picture, but there are women there. Look at how they're dressed. They're dressed as if they're going to see a show. They're dressed as if they are entertained by our plight, which is what they are. Look at how they're dressed. Look at how they're smiling. They still exist today by way of their children and their grandchildren. We're always the entertainment. We were fully employed during slavery. This is us picking their cane and picking their cotton and creating their economies of scale. But this is all how they plan to build better, as they say. Move on to Genesis 15 and 14 as we're about to wrap up, and it says, and also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. Okay, now we get into the meat of the matter. This serving that we've been doing, we've been compelled to labor or to work. We've been created as subjects. We're serving as subjects. We've been enticed to serve. You don't get that job, then you ain't gonna be able to pay your bills. You ain't gonna be able to eat. You ain't gonna be able to get educated. Why? To get another job. So we continue this cycle. And we teach our children to continue this cycle. But it says we're gonna leave with a great substance. This great substance, the substantive part of what we are all about. Everything that you're watching today during International Culture Day 2021. The greater part, the loudest part, the oldest, so they say the eldest part, the aspects of your DNA, your RNA that are coming out today. The education that you've gained that isn't worth much in the line that you're in today is going to be worth very much more on the continent of Africa. The substance, talking about the property, the goods, the possessions, the livestock. They say a general term for all movable goods. So this substance is not something you're supposed to keep in these lands. You're supposed to move it. You're supposed to keep it for the generations to come, but it has to work in your land. Word there is rekush, telling you what this substance is all about. But why aren't we seeing our worth? We liken this reality unto a bar of iron. The numbers may be different depending on which country or culture you're from, But the principle is what we're after today. It says a bar of iron costs $5, but made into horseshoes, it's worth $12. Made into needles, it's worth $3,500. And made into balance springs for watches, it's worth $300,000. Same piece of iron, but it's valued differently. Why? Because your value is determined by what you are able to make of yourself. So like this bar of iron, we will never be able to make ourselves into anything valuable in their lands because their lands are not set up for us to do that. We have to go someplace where we can be valuable. Go into the Ba-Re-Shiyth, which is the African book of Genesis. Begin all things by way, the name of the Most High Heavenly One, and Neri was the creator, the generous one. It reads, and through such the Most High Heavenly One and Neri, in the 15th scroll, verses 49 and 50. And through such the Most High Heavenly One and Neri shall bring about the judgment of the Am, or this nation. So this is the verse correlating with Genesis 15, verse 14. This nation, this Am, which is chosen amongst the Nubian Melanite family, shall wrongfully serve. We're not supposed to be serving now. We're not supposed to be serving these Indo-Aryan Brahmin, these Amorite clan set and Amorite sub-clan of enslavers amongst the 11 plus 1 sons of Can-Naan, who along with their brethren of the 3 sets of 12 invading dynasties of Europa shall watch their personal health, wealth, beliefs, financial status, and power structures decline, decay, and eventually collapse, whereby come to an end. That's what's happening right now. You want it to? Not because we say so. I don't really care because they don't care about us. But at the end of the day, they're not a part of our equation. They're failing all by themselves, though they want to blame us. And yet at that time, during the latter day, shall the global Melanite family be raised up, that's us, through the atonement system of reunification. It's a reunification. Reunification. At oneism. Which atonism shall bring forth in order that they be taught global liberation, not just your own personal liberation, global liberation on all fronts by way of the priestesses and priests of the Holy Qubtic Church, the Black Messiah, who shall advocate the proper, not I want to do it my way, the proper implementation of Rouse Shell Web for all the disciplined ones, the religion, the economics, the labor, sex and gender, the education, the law, the war security, the entertainment, and the politics. That's what this is about. Because if Genesis 15, verse 15 is to be true, it says, and thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age. What is that talking about? In the Ba-Re-Shiyth, we go on to verse 51 of scroll 15, and this verse is how it reads in the original books of the Bible. It says, and then, O Zose Ibrium, that Abraham, the people call him in the King James, shall those Nubian Melanites, including those of your personal genetic line, who are of the chosen seed and pieces of the body of the original sacrificial shepherd Asaru, that endure and survive all the wickedness which they shall endure. You've been enduring all the wickedness, while yet holding firm to the true faith of Platonism, shall be able to return to the lands of their foreparents in Tamare or ancient Africa, live long, healthy lives, and achieve not just quantity, but quality of life into a good old age. Let's take everything that we are seeing today and let's utilize it to live a good quality of life in a good old age in our lands. This has already started. We see stories of the young Africans returning to the continent. This is in a paper called DW. All right, I'm giving you some links to look up so that you don't think we're just talking. You know that the year of return in Ghana started in 2019. It continues today. We are returning to Liberia, West Africa, and we're going to take all of the talents and everything that you're seeing today during this International Culture Day 2021. We're going to live to a good, healthy old age. We're going to take that great substance that we have within us. And we're going to take it to a land where it will become valuable. Pray that this helps us all to understand better what we're doing today and how your talents can be better used in your land. That we say, Amun, Namaste.